everyone, this is Ilina and welcome to another Hero Arts card video. Today we're gonna make this very fun hot chocolate mug using the new Hug in a Mug Stamp and Cut XL. So here is the stamp set. It has a bunch of sentiments and little images, and also the die set is a mug kind of set to build your own hot chocolate mug. You can do coffee or tea or anything you would like. So I will use Dove White and Chestnut cardstock to cut the middle for the hot chocolate and the foam. Not the foam, but the whipped cream. And also I'm using Peony, Paradise, and Scent cardstock to cut very thin strips using my paper trimmer to create that piece of cardstock that we'll use to die cut the mug to give a very fun and unique look of that mug. So I have all the strips cut, and next what I'm doing is I'm taking a piece of scrap paper. In my case I'm using the grid paper from the Misty, and I'm cutting a piece of double-sided adhesive to be sized for the mug. So I'm just trimming that down so I'm not wasting those adhesive sheets. So I'm removing one backing, adding it to the paper, and I'm using thin paper because it's we're gonna put cardstock on top. So if you use another piece of cardstock, it will be harder to go through your die cutting machine and to get a clean cut. So if you have, because you will have layer of adhesive, layer of cardstock on top, and another layer of cardstock on the bottom, so that creates pretty thick layer. So I'm adhering the strips, alternating the colors, and just making sure I have enough room to die cut that mug. So I have the mug here. I'm gonna use some repositionable tape to secure that in place, and I will run it through my die cutting machine. I will also cut the mug and the whipped cream out of Chestnut and Dove White cardstock. I'm cutting extra layers for stacking, so we create a little bit more sturdy image, and it will make it easier to go through the mail without being damaged, and also add some dimension. So what I'm doing here, I'm stacking those layers together with the Hero Arts Precision Glue, just adding around the entire die cut, and then adding the next one on top. So I have 3 layers of Dove White, and then we have the patterned layer that we created. So I'm adding more adhesive, and then I will put the stripped mug on top. I think that looks good. I'm just gonna press it down to make sure that it's nice and flat. And I put acrylic block on top and set that aside to dry. In meantime, I will create the hot chocolate to go in the middle of that mug. So I'm repeating the same process of stacking here. I have 3 layers of Dove White and 1 layer of Chestnut, and I'll adhere all those together. I decided here to go 1 less layer, so I used 2 and 1. So it's you can see more like the depth of that mug. It's more inside, it's more indented when you look at the hot chocolate piece. So it just creates a little bit more dimension and depth. So I'm repeating the same process for the whipped cream. I have 4 layers of Dove White cardstock, and I'm adhering them all together. So we have that one too. Okay, next I'm deciding what I wanted to put on the mug. I decided to go with the heart. So I'm using one of the negatives from the die cuts as a guide where that mug, it will stay there nice and snug while I'm stamping, because I'll stamp a few times because we have little grooves between those strips. So I wanted to get a nice impression with the ink. So I'm using embossing, clear embossing and watermark ink, and stamping several times. Once I think that I have good coverage, I will use detailed white embossing powder and add it to the stamp image. I'm just pouring that on top, shaking off or flicking off the excess. I will heat set it, and while it's still hot, I will apply more embossing powder without stamping on top, because the embossing powder, it's still hot, so it allows more embossing powder to be stuck on top. So I'm just going to remove some of the excess because I had put that several times in the container with the embossing powder, so emboss 3 times. So this also gives more of a raised image. Next, I'm deciding which background color I would like to use. I was gonna go with the chestnut, and then it was too dark for my liking. I'm stamping both just to see how it will look, and I'm using the Noel Print Bold Prints stamp for my background. So I'm stamping using the clear embossing and watermark ink, and then I will emboss with detailed white embossing powder. So I think that chestnut background is stamped nicely. I'm positioning now the sand one and repeating the same process. In the meantime, I didn't want that ink to dry on the chestnut piece of cardstock, so I'm just applying the embossing powder, and then I will heat set both of the panels once I'm done stamping the second one. I'm adding some anti-static powder so that embossing powder doesn't stick all over the image, and we have nice and crisp image once it's embossed. I'm adding the embossing powder now on top. Okay, let's heat set both panels now. You can see how it gets brighter white on the right where I'm when the embossing powder is melting. Okay, so we have both panels here. Just putting the image on the die cut mug on both. And I think that I like the sand one better, so I decided to go with the sand one. So I will trim that to 3 3/4 by 5. Then we'll stamp a sentiment and assemble our card. I think that looks good. And I have sentiment that will fit just underneath that image. I'm using the sand cardstock, and the sentiment says Season's Greetings. I'm using anti-static powder tool, and again I'm using the same clear embossing and watermark ink to stamp several times. I will apply the detailed white embossing powder and heat set, and then I will apply more to get a little bit more raised image and more kind of brighter white. Once you layer all the embossing, the white embossing powder, it becomes brighter. So now we're just gonna do the texture on the whipped cream. So I'm using the Hero Arts clear lacquer pen. I'm adding layers where I want to kind of to get texture from like whipped cream kind of texture. And then I will apply on top of it a white puff embossing powder, and then heat set it, and you can see how it puffs up and creates super fun texture for the whipped cream. I think I'm satisfied with the coverage, and now I'm going with heat tool and applying heat to get that raised image, kind of fluffy texture. Okay, now what we need to do is just assemble our card, and I just adhered everything together and added it to a top folding white note card and just added few embellishments. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope that you like this video. You will give this technique a try. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any ideas and inspiration. Thanks for watching. Bye!